From Creamer Media in Johannesburg, this is the Real Economy Report. Our top stories this week. The first phase of the Gautrain heads towards its 2010 completion date. We discuss the greatest base metal discovery since the Copperbelt. And Ernst Young highlight the risks and opportunities for African construction companies. The first phase of the Gautrain, the link between the OR Tambo International Airport and Sandton Station, is rushing towards its 2010 completion date. Irma Venter takes a look at the progress on this part of the Rapid Rail project.
The Gautrain project is around 65% complete, with an estimated 17.5 billion rand of the project budget of 25.4 billion rand already spent. The project, being constructed by the Mbombela Consortium, is to be completed in two phases. The first phase includes the network between the OR Tambo International Airport and Sandton, and includes the stations at the airport and at Rhodesfield, Marlborough and Sandton, together with the depot and operations control centre located near Allendale Road in Midrand. The second phase, being constructed concurrently, will be completed in 54 months in 2011. It includes the remainder of the rail network and stations linking Sandton to Park Station in Johannesburg and the route from Midrand to Hatfield in Pretoria. The journey between Sandton and airport will take 15 minutes, and construction work is progressing well, says Mbombela OR Tambo International Airport site engineer Kevin Alex.
Progress is well advanced. The platforms just behind me for Rhodesfield Station have been completed since already a month. And at the airport, the platforms, the structural works have been completed, and we are erecting now the steel canopy on top of it.
Okay, so if all goes well, when do you think this link will be completed?
The link, including the civil works plus the E&M works, should be completed by beginning of 2010, around January 2010, to get at least 3 to 4 months trial runs for the train.
It has been a big debate whether the Gautrain airport link will be ready for the 2010 FIFA World Cup, with Mbombela's contract only stating that it should be wrapped up at the end of June. This while the World Cup kicks off on June 11. Gautrain Management Agency CEO Jack van der Merwe says that a decision will have to be made on whether Phase 1 of the project now needs a cash injection to be finished in time for the sports event. He says government is currently in talks with Mbombela to accelerate the project, and that it will have to decide whether it will be prepared to pay the bill to have the airport rail link ready for the World Cup kick-off.
This project was never a FIFA 2010 project. It was announced in 2000. We only got the FIFA Soccer World Cup in 2004.
However, he adds that there is a need and desire from government to finish Phase 1 of the project in time for the global sports event.
We are still on track to make it in time, and I think I was hoping to make an announcement in July. It could take a bit longer, it could take it to August, depending on what the requirements are. But it has to be done in the next maximum 3 months. There's no choice of taking it any longer than that.
Explorers have stumbled across what appears to be the greatest base metal discovery in Africa since the discovery of the Copperbelt in 1897. Martin Creamer speaks to the executives of African Eagle about the highly prospective Dutwa in Tanzania.
We knew just by walking over the hill we could see visible signs of nickel silicate.
You can see the green nickel minerals in the rocks when you walk over.
Dutwa, a nickel laterite deposit in Tanzania, is situated 100 kilometers east of Mwanza city in the so-called Money Hills, the greenstone belt of the Lake Victoria goldfield.
So this really does look like the first major nickel laterite discovery in Africa, and the value of some of the rock that we've drilled so far is a massive equivalent to mining open pit 1 ounce of gold per tonne of rock. So we're seeing some very high value, and I believe this is the highest value base metal project outside the Copperbelt.
African Eagle began its drilling program in June 2008 in order to investigate the strong nickel and cobalt geochemical anomaly extending for more than 2.5 kilometers over a hill.
And what that scoping study has shown is that the project is economically viable. Now, it's been a very conservative study. It's also used $7 a pound for a nickel price. Today's spot nickel is about $7.30, so it's been quite conservative. Of course, it's been a lot higher in the past. And on the basis of that, they've estimated that we'll receive $1.5 billion in revenue over the life of the mine, which is about 21 years at the moment.
We've invested about $2 million to date. Yes, we'll have to invest a lot more, and probably the pre-feasibility, we're looking at maybe £2 million, £2.5 million over the next 9 months. But really, because there was a little bit of serendipity in discovering this, we haven't spent as much as many companies can to discover a major find.
That last March, we signed an option agreement. There's another hill that's 5 kilometers away from Dutra called Ungusamo. That's owned by a Czech consortium. We signed an option agreement with the Czechs, which will allow us to earn a 75% interest in that deposit by taking it to bankable feasibility. And this adjacent hill will augment the resource by at least 50%. So we're talking about a total resource of 45 to 50 million tons at 1% nickel.
Dutra is expected to eventuate into a low-cost mine in 2012, when some analysts are forecasting a nickel price of $8 a pound.
Business advisory firm Ernst Young highlights the risks and the opportunities facing construction companies in Africa.
Ernst Young Business Development Director John Wetton does not expect to see sparkling growth for the local construction industry this year, and says there are many risks facing construction companies.
Well, I think probably the major risk is our downturn that we've experienced now, the meltdown. I mean, clearly that's put a number of projects on hold, and it's actually limited a number of the projects that are existing going forward or developing. So that's, I think, probably the first risk. I think also, the supplier sustainability, particularly around subcontractors, because a lot of construction companies use smaller contractors, particularly BEE contractors, and obviously the credit crunch and the downturn, particularly in things like the housing market, has affected a lot of those contractors.
However, he says there are also still many opportunities available for the industry to take advantage of.
In Africa, there's a massive shortage of infrastructure. I mean, wherever you go in Africa, the infrastructure is short, is underinvested. So clearly, that is a massive opportunity. I mean, the challenge around that is always, where does the money come from? So, unless the resources sector picks up, because Africa is obviously very rich in resources. If that picks up, and the governments that are custodians of those resources do the right thing by their populations and invest and make that money available. I mean, that is the challenge: is whether the market's going to pick up. In my view, I think it is. But the bigger challenge is how the government's going to handle that money.
And now for a sneak preview of this week's Engineering News magazine. In our cover story, we highlight how undersea telecommunications company Seacom's landing will catalyze a pricing and capacity evolution, but we're warned not to expect a revolution. The Industrial Development Corporation prepares to join a host of other state-owned enterprises in making a significant re-entry into the capital markets next year. And the chairperson of the newly inaugurated Technology Innovation Agency, Mampela Rampele, promises to make new ideas bankable. And in Mining Weekly this week, read our cover story where we showcase the Russian mining industry, which seems to be showing some signs of recovery from the global recession. We report that South Africa's state-owned mining company might create its first open-cast coal mine by the end of 2010. And we report that Africa-focused diamond miner Stellar Diamonds is considering several consolidation opportunities. That's Creamer Media's Real Economy Report. Join us again next week for more news and insight into South Africa's real economy.
Engineering news, not just for engineers.